Good morning. So I've gotten a lot of questions recently about what really is shadow work and why is it important to kind of step into that. And it really took some time to think about that and just figure out exactly what it was because Carl Jung says that until you make the unconscious conscious, that unconscious will direct your life and you will call it fate. So I want you to think of the unconscious mind as a powerful force that drives your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, often without you even realizing what's going on. If you ever had those moments where you do something and somebody asks you, like, why'd you do that? And you're like, I have no idea. That's your unconscious mind driving that. That's your shadow, really. And these patterns appear in our life and they seem to be as if they're completely out of your control, repeating the same mistakes, same choices, things that don't align with how you want to live your life, but you still do them. These patterns are all driven by your unconscious beliefs and desires that you're probably not even aware of. And they're running back there all the time. If you don't take the time to explore your unconscious mind, these patterns continually influence you and your life, leading you down paths that you normally wouldn't take, normally wouldn't do. You feel like you're simply following fate instead of taking control of your life and living a life that's like on destiny. And if you're willing to make the effort and explore your unconscious mind, you gain a much deeper understanding of yourself, what motivates you, what drives you, what that big why is that you're living your life off of. And then you can take that and you can begin to recognize the patterns that you have been directing your life with. And you start to make conscious choices that actually align with your values and goals. And, for me, the reason I dug down into my shadow was because I was living a really good life. Nice house, great cars, good clothes, taking the family out whenever we wanted. And I was working 60, 70 hours a week. I was putting in the time there at the mine and giving everything to my family because I thought that as a provider, that's what I was supposed to do. And I did all that, and yet I still felt like there was like a hole inside there. You know what I mean? The dark thoughts, the voices in my head would scream at me. And usually at least once a year, I would really kind of sink down into the depths of that darkness. And the thoughts would really be really ignorant. Okay. I'm not going to elaborate on them. We don't need to do that here. But that's what opened this door for me. It was like, hey, I got to find this out. What is doing this? So I would always kind of have the conversations with myself. I'd be at that brink at the edge and look down into the abyss, see the water down there, see the ocean as it was. And until I took that journey down into the darkness, I never really saw the depths of what was down there. And it's like if you rip the band-aid off of like an old cut that you have. And yeah, you've cleaned it out, you put Neosporin on there, the band-aids on there, but it just doesn't heal, it doesn't go away. And in the old days, it would have got gangrenous. So imagine having that kind of down there in those depths, just that kind of a wound that never really heals. That's what's driving some of the shadow. These parts are down there and they're getting fed by that power. And it slowly erodes away the rest of everything else. The infection spreads until you get those bursts where you kind of tear everything down and you're like, oh, why did I do that? And then you build it back up, keep repressing it again, pushing it back down. And that's that pattern that we're talking about. The journey into unlocking your unconscious mind can be challenging. You're likely going to encounter parts of yourself that you do not want to face, things that we have shame or guilt over from mistakes we made early on in our lives. Yet, kind of like Eric Church says, when you shine the flashlight underneath the bed, you eradicate the monsters. When you shine light on these hidden aspects of us, you dig down into your unconscious mind, you start to integrate them back into your conscious awareness, and you begin to live more authentically. You feel more congruent and, for lack of a better term, excuse me, you feel aligned. You feel like, holy cow, there's something I'm actually can go after again, because you've got the train back on the tracks. And that's what the shadow work really allows you to do. Making your unconscious conscious puts you back in the driver's seat, and you become master of your fate again. And you really, once you learn how to stand at that helm and navigate those seas, you can set the destination, the course that you're going to chart by. Because it's not like you can just set autopilot and let it go. You're going to be on uncharted waters. You're going to be aware of the different things that are out there in the water, the other presences, other ships that may be on the ocean. It's all an unconscious force that seems to be directing your every move. And at first you try to ignore it, believing that, hey, I can just steer around this and do this and get back on a course. Or a big storm blows up. Do you want to go through the storm, or do you want to try to go around the storm? And sometimes those storms grow more intense. The currents get more treacherous in them. And you begin to realize how you're not really in control. You're just kind of steering the ship as best you can. And that, when you see it like that, that all of a sudden your unconscious is that ship, and you're just steering it where you need it to go. You learn to confront those things head on, instead of, no, we'll deal with that later. And that brings you back to regaining control of that ship. And with this analogy of the ship, imagine you're sailing the ship and you get a big tear in the sail. Or are you going to say, no, I'll get that later, it's okay? Or are you going to take care of it now to keep you going in the direction you want to go? That's that same thing that we do unconsciously, where, oh, I'll deal with it later. Oh, I'll deal with it later. This is more important. Well, sooner or later, that stuff builds up, and a lot of stuff falls down from time to time. But as you confront this unconscious, you gain this awareness with yourself and your surroundings. You learn to navigate these storms and currents with greater ease. So you're responding more effectively and proactively to keep yourself on course with that destination that you really want clearly on the horizon. You realize that making these unconscious conscious, that you've taken back that control of the journey, and you're not just a passenger that's floating through life. You're now living a life that you desire. This is the joy, the gift of diving down into that darkness and being brave enough to go there. That's the reward, is all of a sudden your life is one that people are envious of. You become the hero again of your story, instead of just another combatant. And at the end of the day, if that's where we truly lived, how big of a difference does that make for all of us? That's pretty powerful. And that's what you're going to gain by making your unconscious conscious.